Alright guys, second video for today since I forgot the first one yesterday. It is 2:53 here, still March 13th on the East Coast. So the second video today, as promised, is going to be on growing into yourself. So yesterday I ran into an old friend of mine from high school who said that he wouldn't have recognized me unless I said hello to him. And I found that both interesting, and sometimes you don't know how to take those types of comments, but he prefaced it in a good way, saying that I look like I put on 30 pounds of muscle, which is he's pretty accurate in saying that. But we were talking about how I went to the military. He had said that a lot of people I run into haven't seen me in a while because I returned to my hometown after about 8 years of serving in the military, tell me all the same thing, that they're happy that they appreciate my service and that I look completely different from what they remember me. But it's always good to hear that, and they always mean it in a kind way. But growing into myself, definitely from the high school person that a lot of people remember me as, and even before then, when I switched over from Miami to Palm Coast, where I currently live at, was in middle school. So that transition that I had, obviously, I'm not in contact with a lot of those Miami friends that I had because those relationships were kind of just dwindled as time went on, and there wasn't really many ways to keep in contact with those people. But as things changed, the world changed, and I changed. And I went through middle and high school. Some of these friends that I had as far back as middle school that I continued to run into here in my hometown of Palm Coast, they've seen the change, and change is for me, it's best seen over time. So, and that goes for a lot of things. Like you'll notice, obviously there's instant change where things can change in the matter of an instant. But if you want to see growth change, like exponential growth change, sometimes that takes time. And some of these people have a memory of me from high school where I believe I graduated around probably 140, 150 pounds, probably. That's probably being generous there. And now I'm weighing upwards of 190. So it's about a 40-pound difference. Obviously, not all of it is muscle. There's definitely plenty of fat to go around. But the change that people see in me is crazy. And I see change in people too, but it's not. Sometimes it's not as dramatic as you would think. And the military changed me for the better, definitely, but it also changed my body physically from a lot of the different things that I went through and that I endured that I wanted to do. Growth for me, I didn't make it really an option. I wanted to do some intriguing things in the military, so I put my body through some intriguing tasks to say the least, and my body ended up growing a lot from it. So the changes that these people see are more physical changes, and there's not too much of the emotional change attached with that obviously that you go through being in the military. More people are they see surface deep sometimes, so they see the change that's on the surface. But there's been a lot of emotional change as well for me, and we'll probably get into that in one of the later videos. But growing into myself from then being in high school, like boy transitioning into a man, I remember I couldn't wait to grow facial hair. Now I have a beard, I couldn't wait to. It's funny to me, like glancing back at it, when I was in high school and I just wanted to grow facial hair so bad. And I would, do things. I remember my first time shaving. I believe my mom was the one who taught me to shave the first time, if I'm not mistaken. And there was nothing but peach fuzz on my face, but I had heard that if you start shaving, that you might grow some facial hair. So I would shave almost on a weekly basis back then. And then I started to grow facial hair, and I was so excited. And then I remember around 22, I was able to grow a beard pretty easily. And sometimes I would rock a beard for, till it got a little gross sometimes for my own well-being. And now I maintain my beard, but I was so excited to grow a beard. Then I ended up joining the military where they make you shave your beard off on a consistent basis unless you're doing some things that require some blending in operational type of setting. So for me, uh, I was never in those types of environments for that long of a period. So I never really got to grow my beard out unless I was on leave, or taking some time off, in the military. Not that you can take time off, but you request leave and they let you, do whatever you want to where you don't have to report to work. And they still recommend you shave, but it's not really written in stone that you have to shave. And then I remember being in Korea where they made you shave every day regardless of whether you were on leave or not. So if you were to walk around post with a beard, sometimes they'd assume that you were just one of the contractors. But if you were in a unit in the army walking around with a beard and people knew it, they'd get on your case about it. So, and then I got out of the military and I grew a beard out again. So growing into myself over time has been, kind of interesting for me. The growth. I remember my freshman year, I was 103 pounds, and I wanted so badly to gain weight, and I would take weight gainers and protein and creatine and all these other substances and supplements to try and help me grow. I joined the weightlifting team then, and I just started to grow from there. And it's been a crazy transition since then. I believe my freshman year was 2001. It is 2017 now. So that's roughly 16 years ago. And since then, I've put on 90 pounds since my freshman year. I average about 10 pounds a year with the weightlifting and the supplements I was taking. So I believe I was around 140, between 140 and 150 by the time I graduated. I think it was 10 pounds every year. So for me, it was so interesting to see the change, but you don't recognize that change like a growing puppy. You see them initially, they're small, they're cute, they're cuddly, and all these things. And before you know it, a year later, you got a mammoth on your hands, depending on the breed. Like I remember not too long ago, we got a Weimaraner. He's about to turn 2 in 11 days, and he is huge, ginormous for the breed, but I remember it so vividly when we got him as a puppy. Even as a puppy, he was big, but still small. I mean, fractions of his size now, and now he's, his head is the size of his body used to be. So it's crazy to see that growth, and you don't necessarily see it initially. It takes time to see that growth, but growing into myself, and seeing that change and growing into a person that I'd like to be, definitely took some time, but people notice. And when you run into old friends who haven't seen you in a while, especially when you've been on like a leave of absence from your hometown and you go back for one reason or another, whether it's to visit or to live again, when they see that change, it tends to be overwhelming, and sometimes you're unrecognizable in a good way. And some people like to see that change. Some people don't like to see the change. Sometimes change is not always healthy, and sometimes people are envious of change. So, but growing into myself and seeing that development happen, the physical, I'm not really going to touch into the emotional portion. I'll probably save that for another video. But as far as the physical portion of change, it definitely took some time, some years, some invested hard work, strength training, and all these other things that go into growing both, physically and mentally into the person that I am today. And I remember he saw the hat that I'm wearing, that I've shown you guys before, but he's like, "Aren't you a little young to be, wearing that hat?" And I was like, he's like, "How old are you?" I was like, 31. He's like, "Wow, you don't look it." And I said, "Well, thanks." And then that's when we got to start talking about the military, and then how, I was used to things, and then we talked about certain things that we both shared in common, even though we were in two different branches, like I mentioned, but having to deal with, young lieutenants coming into the military, and you're kind of very well experienced. They're new to the military, and they're put in charge of you because they're officers with, let's say, more education on an educational standpoint, but no experience in the military world. So having them transition over to that, sometimes you get officers that aren't necessarily um, well equipped to handle what they just jumped into, and it's a sometimes it could be a good response because it'll make them humble, and sometimes it'll be a bad response because they'll act like they know too much. So we talked about, that same occurrence that we both encountered, being on the enlisted side of the house and not being officers, but working hand in hand with officers. How you get those, new recruits out of just pretty much out of school and some basic training, and they're put in charge of many lives and responsibility. And again, like I've made a video on that, with more responsibility comes more pay, but you're expected to be able to handle that responsibility. So we would talk about, the interactions that we had with those officers at those times, and whether good or bad, they were. It was that they had to grow into themselves to be able to, acclimate to the new changes that they were being thrown into. So that'll be it for today's video. I believe that'd be a good summary of growing into myself, and then watching some people grow into themselves, and reuniting with people who you haven't seen in a while, which I definitely appreciated. And then change overall, whether it's good or bad, change is going to happen on a daily basis, whether you realize it or not. Your cells are constantly changing. The world is constantly changing on a daily basis. And if you're not growing with that change, then that's when you start to become stagnant and start to maybe lose yourself in this ever-changing world. So that'll be it for today's vlog. I think I'm still at 42 subscribers, if I'm not mistaken, but I appreciate each one of you, and I still have 8 to go before the end of this month to reach my goal of 50. And then I do have a live portion that I'm doing on the 26th, my first stand-up mentoring thing that I'm doing in front of a crowd of people that I'm going to record and put up for that day's vlog. So guys, definitely stay tuned for that, and I will see you on the next one.